Chapter 1. The Unwanted Gift. The marketplace on the sprawling space station Graxolin 7 was a cacophony of sounds, sights, and smells. Alien species of every shape and size bartered for goods, exchanged information, and occasionally quarreled over perceived slights. Victor Kane, a human trader, strode through the bustling bazaar with a grim expression. He had come to Graxolin 7 for one purpose: to salvage his dwindling reputation among intergalactic merchants. Victor wasn't just any trader. He was one of the last independent human negotiators left in a galaxy dominated by massive conglomerates and alien alliances. His freighter, the Starbound Fortune, was barely holding together after years of neglect, and his finances were stretched thin. Graxolin 7, known for its high-stakes deals, was his last hope to secure a profitable contract. A dangerous offer. Victor's search led him to Threxos, a reptilian merchant known for his questionable business ethics and shady dealings. Threxos' stand was laden with glittering artifacts, exotic weaponry, and cages containing various creatures. Human, Threxos called out, his forked tongue flicking the air. You seek fortune, yes? Perhaps Threxos has what you need. Victor hesitated, eyeing the merchant warily. Threxos' reputation for exploitative bargains was well known, but Victor was desperate. I'm looking for ship components, he said. High quality, low cost. Threxos grinned, his sharp teeth gleaming. But Threxos has something far better. A prize, a gift, unlike anything you have ever seen. Victor raised an eyebrow. I'm not here for trinkets. Not a trinket, Threxos hissed. He gestured to a small, shadowed cage at the back of his stall. Inside was a figure, huddled and motionless. Behold, a rare treasure in Alarian. Victor frowned, stepping closer. The Alarians were a mysterious alien race, known for their beauty and psychic abilities. They rarely left their homeworld, and those who did were never seen in chains. The figure in the cage stirred. She was humanoid, with silvery skin that shimmered faintly under the dim lights. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, and her large, luminous eyes glowed faintly. She wore a tattered garment that barely concealed her slender frame. Victor felt a pang of anger. You're selling people now, Threxos? Threxos shrugged. A gift, human. A token of friendship. Take her, and Threxos will throw in the components you need. The girl looked up, her eyes meeting Victor's. There was no fear in her gaze, only a quiet defiance that sent a chill down his spine. Victor shook his head. I don't deal in slaves. No slave. Threxos protested. A companion, an assistant. She will serve you well, and Threxos asks only for a promise of future dealings. Victor hesitated. He didn't trust Threxos, but the components he needed were worth a fortune. Without them, his ship and his livelihood were doomed. And the girl, he couldn't leave her here. Fine, Victor said. I'll take her, but she's not a slave. She's free to leave whenever she wants. Threxos chuckled, handing Victor a small control device. You are a strange one, human, but a deal is a deal. An uneasy partnership. Victor led the girl back to his ship, his mind racing. What was he going to do with her? He had no experience with Alarians, and her presence would only complicate an already dire situation. Once aboard the Starbound Fortune, he turned to her. What's your name? The girl hesitated before replying in a soft, melodic voice. Liara. Well, Liara, Victor said, you're free now. You don't owe me anything. If you want, I can drop you off at the nearest safe station. Liara tilted her head, studying him with those glowing eyes. Why did you take me if you do not wish to keep me? Victor sighed, running a hand through his hair. I couldn't leave you with that bastard, Threxos, but I don't expect you to stick around. Liara's gaze softened. You are different from the others. Victor shrugged. Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I'm just trying to survive. First signs of trouble. As Liara explored the ship, Victor busied himself with repairs and inventory management. She proved to be surprisingly helpful, assisting with tasks and showing an innate understanding of the ship systems. Despite her lack of formal training, she quickly adapted, her psychic abilities allowing her to intuit solutions to complex problems. But their fragile partnership was tested when a group of bounty hunters intercepted the Starbound Fortune. They had heard rumors of an Alarian on board and wanted to claim her for themselves. Victor stood in the ship's cockpit, his jaw clenched as the bounty hunter's ship loomed on the view screen. "They're not backing off," he muttered. Liara appeared beside him, her expression calm but determined. "Let me handle this." "What? No way. They'll kill you." "They will not," Liara said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Trust me." Victor reluctantly agreed, watching as Liara stepped into the cargo hold and opened a comm channel to the bounty hunters. She spoke in a language he didn't understand, her voice resonating with an otherworldly power. Moments later, the bounty hunter's ship powered down and retreated. Victor stared at her in disbelief. "What did you say to them?" Liara smiled faintly. "I persuaded them to leave." Victor shook his head, a mix of admiration and unease creeping into his thoughts. Liara was far more capable and far more dangerous than he had realized. A growing bond. Over the following weeks, Victor and Liara settled into an uneasy rhythm. She continued to assist him with the ship, and he began to rely on her insights and skills. Despite his initial reluctance, he found himself drawn to her quiet strength and enigmatic charm. One evening, as they shared a simple meal in the ship's galley, Victor finally asked the question that had been gnawing at him. "Why were you in that cage?" Liara's luminous eyes darkened. "My people are hunted for our abilities. Threxos captured me while I was traveling. I would have escaped eventually, but you changed everything." Victor frowned. "Why didn't you escape sooner?" Liara hesitated, then said softly, "I was waiting for someone I could trust." Victor's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded. A dangerous proposal. As their journey continued, Liara began to take a more active role in Victor's life. She pushed him to take on more ambitious contracts, using her abilities to negotiate better deals and outmaneuver their competitors. Under her guidance, the Starbound fortune began to thrive. But their newfound success attracted attention, not all of it welcome. A powerful crime syndicate known as the Vraxian Cartel demanded that Victor and Liara work for them exclusively. When Victor refused, the cartel sent a warning. A small explosive device planted on their ship. Victor and Liara managed to disarm the bomb, but the message was clear. The cartel wouldn't take no for an answer. As Victor paced the ship's cockpit, Liara approached him. "We cannot keep running," she said. "We must face them." Victor stared at her. "You're talking about going up against one of the most dangerous syndicates in the galaxy." Liara nodded. "Together, we can succeed." Victor sighed, then smiled faintly. "You're insane, but I guess I am too." As they prepared for the confrontation ahead, Victor couldn't shake the feeling that his life had changed forever and that Liara was at the center of it. Chapter 2. Facing the Cartel. The Vraxian Cartel was a name whispered in fear across the galaxy. Known for their ruthlessness, the cartel controlled a network of smuggling routes, illegal weapons deals, and a thriving slave trade. To cross them was to sign your own death warrant or worse. Yet, as Victor Kane and Liara prepared to face the syndicate, fear was the last thing on their minds. Victor sat in the Starbound Fortune's cockpit, staring at a holographic map of Vraxian Outpost, one of the cartel's primary bases hidden in the asteroid belt of Harlan's Reach. The outpost was heavily fortified, with automated turrets, shielded docking bays, and enough cartel enforcers to overwhelm a small army. "This is suicide," Victor muttered, running a hand through his hair. "We can't take this place down with just the two of us." Liara, standing beside him, placed a hand on his shoulder. "We don't need to take it down. We only need to send a message." Victor raised an eyebrow. "A message?" Liara's silver eyes glowed faintly. "We target their leader. Without him, the cartel will falter." Victor exhaled sharply, a mix of anxiety and admiration brewing within him. Liara's calm determination was both inspiring and unsettling. "You really think we can pull this off?" Liara's lips curved into a faint smile. "We have no choice." The infiltration. The Starbound Fortune approached Harlan's Reach under the guise of a cargo hauler. Liara had modified the ship's transponder to broadcast a false ID, ensuring they could slip past the outpost's automated defenses. Still, Victor's hands gripped the controls tightly as they entered the asteroid field. "Keep steady," Liara said, her voice soothing. "The asteroids will shield us from their scans." Victor nodded, his focus razor-sharp as he navigated the treacherous terrain. The massive asteroid housing the Vraxalan outpost loomed ahead, its surface bristling with weapon emplacements and shield generators. They docked in a concealed maintenance bay, using a stolen access code Liara had acquired during her captivity. As the ship powered down, Victor glanced at her. "You ready for this?" Liara's expression softened. "I've been ready for a long time." The two disembarked, blending into the chaos of the outpost's bustling corridors. Liara's psychic abilities proved invaluable, allowing her to guide them past guards and security checkpoints with uncanny precision. Victor couldn't help but marvel at her skill. "Do you always know what people are thinking?" he asked in a hushed tone. "Not always," Liara replied. "But fear and greed are easy to sense. This place is full of both." The cartel leader. Their target was Varnock Drav, the cartel's brutal leader. A towering alien with obsidian-black scales and glowing red eyes, Varnock was known for his cruelty and strategic genius. He rarely left the command center at the heart of the outpost, surrounded by loyal guards and state-of-the-art defenses. Liara and Victor made their way toward the command center, bypassing traps and neutralizing guards with quiet efficiency. As they approached the final corridor, Liara paused, her eyes narrowing. "What is it?" Victor whispered. "There's a trap ahead," Liara said, her voice tense. "They know we're here." Victor's heart sank. "What do we do?" Liara closed her eyes, her psychic aura flaring faintly. "We adapt." The trap. As they stepped into the command center, the doors slammed shut behind them. Varnock Drav stood at the far end of the room, his massive frame imposing beneath the dim lighting. Around him, a dozen heavily armed enforcers aimed their weapons at Victor and Liara. Well, Varnock rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "The human traitor and his little pet. I wondered how long it would take you to come crawling to me." Victor bristled, but Liara placed a calming hand on his arm. "You should have left us alone, Varnock," she said, her voice steady. "Now, you'll face the consequences." Varnock laughed, a deep, menacing sound. "You think you can threaten me, girl? You're nothing but a Tule broken one at that." Liara's expression didn't waver. "Victor, cover your ears." Before he could question her, Liara unleashed a psychic pulse, a shockwave of energy that sent the enforcers reeling. Their weapons clattered to the ground as they clutched their heads in agony. Victor, protected by Liara's warning, drew his blaster and took aim at the disoriented guards. Varnock roared in fury, charging toward them with alarming speed. Victor fired several shots, but the cartel leader's thick scales absorbed the blasts. Liara stepped forward, her hands glowing with energy. "You underestimated me, Varnock," she said, her voice resonating with power. "That was your first mistake." With a flick of her wrist, Liara sent a telekinetic wave crashing into Varnock, slamming him against the wall. The cartel leader snarled, struggling to rise, but Liara held him in place with an invisible force. "Leave this station," she commanded, her voice echoing with authority. "Take your cartel and never return. If you don't, I'll destroy everything you've built." Varnock glared at her, his red eyes blazing. "You think this is over? You'll regret this, girl." Liara's gaze hardened. "No, Varnock. You will." With a final surge of energy, she sent Varnock hurtling through the air, crashing into the far wall with a deafening impact. The cartel leader lay motionless, his guards retreating in terror. The aftermath. As alarms blared throughout the outpost, Liara and Victor made their escape. They sprinted through the corridors, dodging panicked enforcers and automated defenses. When they reached the Starbound Fortune, Victor powered up the ship's engines and blasted out of the docking bay, narrowly avoiding the outpost's turrets. Once they were safely in hyperspace, Victor turned to Liara, his chest heaving. "That was insane." Liara smiled faintly. "It was necessary." Victor shook his head, a mix of awe and disbelief in his eyes. "You're incredible, you know that?" Liara's cheeks flushed faintly, her silver skin shimmering. "And you are braver than you realize." For the first time since their journey began, Victor allowed himself to relax. The cartel was weakened, and he had a newfound respect and something more for the enigmatic Alarian who had changed his life. As the Starbound Fortune hurtled through the stars, Victor couldn't help but wonder what the future held for them. One thing was certain. They were no longer just a trader and his unexpected companion. They were partners, and perhaps something even greater. Chapter 3. A Growing Bond. The Starbound Fortune glided through the stars, its engines humming steadily as Victor and Liara sat in the cockpit, bathed in the soft glow of starlight. The tension from their confrontation with the Vraxian cartel was still palpable, but the air between them had shifted. They were no longer just reluctant allies, something deeper was forming. Victor leaned back in his seat, his fingers tapping the armrest. So, you want to tell me what exactly that was back there? You took out Varnock like he was nothing. Liara tilted her head, her silver eyes glowing faintly. The Alarian people are trained to harness our psychic abilities from a young age. Some of us develop stronger talents. Stronger? Victor let out a low whistle. Liara, you threw a guy twice your size into a wall like it was a casual Tuesday. That's more than strong. She smiled faintly, a flicker of amusement softening her features. It's not something I've always been proud of. My abilities have made me a target. That's why I left my homeworld. Victor's expression softened and ended up in a cage. Liara looked away, her gaze distant. Yes, I was careless, and Threxos took advantage of that. I thought I'd never see freedom again. Victor hesitated, then reached out to touch her hand. You're free now, Liara, and I'll make sure you stay that way. She glanced at him, her luminous eyes searching his face. Why do you care so much, Victor? Most people wouldn't have looked twice. Victor shrugged, a faint smile playing on his lips. Guess I've always had a thing for the underdog. A dangerous encounter. Their moment was interrupted by a loud beeping from the ship's comm system. Victor frowned, leaning forward to check the incoming signal. The message was garbled, but one word stood out: danger. It's coming from a nearby sector, Victor said, adjusting the controls. Looks like a distress call. Liara nodded. We should investigate. Victor raised an eyebrow. We? You realize we just made enemies with one of the most dangerous cartels in the galaxy, right? Maybe we should lay low for a while. Liara's gaze was steady. If someone's in trouble, we can't ignore it. Victor sighed, knowing he wouldn't win this argument. Fine, but if this turns out to be a trap, I'm blaming you. As the Starbound Fortune changed course, Victor couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading straight into trouble. The distress signal. The source of the distress call was a freighter drifting in the shadow of a massive asteroid. Its hull was scorched, and faint energy readings suggested the ship's systems were barely operational. This doesn't look good, Victor muttered as he brought the Fortune alongside the freighter. No signs of life, but the distress beacon is still active. Liara stood beside him, her expression cautious. Be careful, Victor. There's something strange about this. Victor grabbed his blaster and suited up. Stay here and monitor the ship. If anything happens, get us out of here. Liara's eyes narrowed. I'm not letting you go alone. Victor opened his mouth to argue, but stopped when he saw the determination in her gaze. Fine, but stick close. The pair boarded the freighter through a damaged airlock. The interior was dark and eerily silent, with flickering lights casting shadows across the walls. Debris floated in the zero-gravity environment, and the faint smell of burnt electronics lingered in the air. This place is a tomb, Victor said, his voice low. Liara touched his arm, her psychic senses reaching out. Wait, I sense something. Before she could finish, a burst of energy lit up the corridor. Victor barely had time to react as a group of heavily armed mercenaries appeared, their weapons trained on him and Liara. Drop your weapons! One of them barked, his voice distorted by a helmet. Victor cursed under his breath, raising his hands. Let me guess, this was a trap? The mercenary chuckled darkly. Vraxian bounty. You're worth a lot of credits, human. And the girl? She's a bonus. Liara stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. Leave now, and I'll let you live. The mercenaries exchanged glances before bursting into laughter. Victor winced. They really shouldn't have done that. Liara's fury. Liara's eyes flared with light, and a wave of psychic energy erupted from her, throwing the mercenaries against the walls. Their weapons clattered to the floor as they struggled to recover. Victor grabbed his blaster and opened fire, taking out the few who managed to stay upright. The confined space worked to their advantage, limiting the mercenaries' movements and giving Liara the upper hand. One of the mercenaries lunged at Liara, but she stopped him mid-air with a flick of her wrist, holding him suspended as he gasped for air. "Who sent you?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The mercenary choked out a single word, "Varnock." Liara's expression darkened, and she released him, letting his unconscious body drift to the floor. "The cartel isn't done with us." Victor reloaded his blaster, his jaw tight. "Let's finish this and get out of here." A turning point. After neutralizing the mercenaries, Victor and Liara searched the freighter for survivors. They found none, but the ship's logs revealed something troubling. The cartel was tracking their movements, using informants across multiple systems to monitor the Starbound fortune. "They're not going to stop, are they?" Victor said as they returned to their ship. Liara shook her head. "No, but we can't keep running." Victor frowned. "What are you suggesting?" Liara's eyes glowed faintly. "We take the fight to them. If we can dismantle their network, we'll force them to leave us alone." Victor let out a low whistle. "You're serious? Do you have a better idea?" Liara asked, her tone gentle but firm. Victor thought for a moment, then smiled. "No, and for some reason, I trust you." Liara smiled back, the tension between them softening. "Then let's do this together." A growing bond. As they prepared for their next move, Victor found himself increasingly drawn to Liara. Her strength, intelligence, and unwavering determination were unlike anything he had ever encountered. And Liara, in turn, saw in Victor a kindness and loyalty that had been absent from her life for too long. One evening, as they sat in the ship's galley, sharing a rare moment of calm, Victor hesitated before speaking. "Liara," he said, his voice unsteady, "I don't know what this is between us, but I care about you. More than I probably should." Liara's silver eyes softened, and she reached out to take his hand. "I feel the same, Victor. I never thought I could trust anyone again, but you've shown me that I can." For the first time, Victor allowed himself to hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew he wouldn't face them alone. Chapter 4. The Final Stand. The Starbound fortune raced through hyperspace, its patched-together hull trembling under the strain of maximum thrust. Inside the cockpit, Victor Kane and Liara pored over a holographic map of the galaxy, their expressions grim. Their destination was Varnock Prime, the home base of the Vraxian cartel and the stronghold of their vengeful leader, Varnock Drath. Victor leaned back in his seat, his hand running through his hair. "This is insane. We're heading straight into the belly of the beast with one ship and no backup." Liara's silver eyes glowed faintly as she placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's the only way to end this. If we take out Varnock and disrupt the cartel's operations, they'll have no reason to keep hunting us." Victor sighed. "And if we fail?" Liara's gaze hardened. "Then we take as many of them down with us as we can." A desperate plan. As the fortune approached Varnock Prime, Victor and Liara finalized their plan. The cartel's stronghold was a sprawling fortress built into the side of a jagged asteroid, its defenses nearly impenetrable. Automated turrets, energy shields, and a fleet of heavily armed ships guarded the perimeter. "We'll need to disable their defenses first," Liara said, pointing to the holographic display. "The shield generator is here, in the lower levels. If we can take it out, we'll have a chance to reach the command center." Victor frowned. "And by we, you mean me, right?" Liara smiled faintly. "Your skills with sabotage will be essential. I'll create a diversion to draw their attention." Victor hesitated. "Liara, if something happens to you, dash." She cut him off with a gentle touch. "Victor, we've come too far to stop now. Trust me." Victor nodded, his resolve hardening. "All right, let's do this." The infiltration. The fortune emerged from hyperspace just outside the asteroid field, its stealth systems engaged. Victor navigated the treacherous terrain with practiced skill, weaving through the floating rocks to avoid detection. They landed in a hidden alcove on the asteroid's dark side, well out of range of the cartel's sensors. Victor and Liara disembarked, clad in lightweight armor and armed with an assortment of weapons and tools. The air inside the asteroid was thin and cold, but Liara's psychic abilities helped them navigate the labyrinthine corridors leading to the shield generator. As they moved deeper into the fortress, Liara stopped abruptly, her glowing eyes narrowing. Guards ahead. 4 of them. Victor crouched behind a jagged outcrop, his blaster at the ready. Can you handle it? Liara smirked. Watch and learn. She stepped into the open, her presence immediately drawing the guards' attention. Before they could react, Liara unleashed a wave of psychic energy that knocked them unconscious. Victor shook his head in amazement as he followed her. I'll never get used to that, he muttered. Disabling the shield. The shield generator was a massive structure, its humming machinery filling the cavernous room with an oppressive noise. Victor approached the control panel, his fingers flying across the interface as he worked to disable the system. We've got company, Liara warned, her voice calm but urgent. Victor glanced up to see a squad of heavily armed enforcers pouring into the room. Liara moved like a whirlwind, deflecting their blaster fire with psychic barriers and retaliating with devastating energy blasts. Hurry up, Victor, she shouted, her voice tinged with strain. I'm working on it, he replied, sweat dripping down his forehead. With a final keystroke, the generator powered down, and the fortress's shields flickered out of existence. Done, Victor yelled. Liara nodded, her eyes blazing as she sent the last of the enforcers sprawling. Then let's move. The command center. With the shields down, the Starbound Fortune's automated systems began bombarding the cartel's defenses, creating chaos throughout the fortress. Victor and Liara used the distraction to fight their way to the command center, encountering fierce resistance at every turn. When they finally burst through the doors, they found Varnock Drav waiting for them. The cartel leader stood at the center of the room, flanked by 2 massive enforcers. His obsidian black scales glinted under the harsh lights, and his red eyes burned with rage. You've caused me enough trouble, human, Varnock snarled, his voice like grinding stone. And you, Alarian, you should have stayed in your cage. Liara stepped forward, her gaze unyielding. Your time is over, Varnock. Surrender, or face the consequences. Varnock laughed, a deep, menacing sound. You think you can defeat me? I built this cartel from nothing. You are nothing. Victor raised his blaster. Yeah? Let's see how tough you are without your goons. The final battle. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Varnock's enforcers charged at Victor, their sheer size and strength overwhelming. Victor ducked and rolled, firing shots that barely slowed them down. Liara, meanwhile, engaged Varnock directly, her psychic powers clashing against his brute force. You've grown strong, girl, Varnock growled, swinging a massive claw at her. But strength is nothing without control. Liara dodged his attack, her hands glowing with energy. And control is nothing without purpose. With a cry, she unleashed a concentrated blast of psychic energy, staggering Varnock. At the same time, Victor managed to disable one of the enforcers with a well-placed shot to its power armor. Liara, Victor shouted. Now's your chance. Liara didn't hesitate. She channeled all her energy into a final attack, striking Varnock with a telekinetic wave that sent him crashing into the command console. Sparks flew as the cartel leader collapsed, his obsidian scales cracked and his red eyes dimmed. A new beginning. The fall of Varnock Drav sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Without their leader, the Varaxian cartel fractured, its members turning on each other in a desperate scramble for power. Victor and Liara returned to the Starbound Fortune, battered but victorious. As they sat together in the ship's galley, Victor poured 2 glasses of synthale, handing one to Liara. To us, he said, raising his glass, and to whatever comes next. Liara smiled, her silver eyes shimmering. To us. Their glasses clinked, and for the first time in a long while, Victor felt a sense of peace. Liara had not only changed his life, she had given him a purpose. Victor, Liara said softly, placing her hand over his, I never thought I could trust anyone again, but you've shown me that there's still good in this galaxy, and I want to stay with you. Victor's heart swelled, and he covered her hand with his own. Liara, I don't know what the future holds, but as long as you're with me, I'll face whatever comes. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, amid the chaos and uncertainty, 2 unlikely companions had found something rare and precious. Each other. And for them, that was enough.